Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Granite Mountain Movie Club. Today I'm joined by Cool Frasier.
Hello, cool and listening.
And we're going to be talking about a little movie that just came out called Heretic. How's this movie doing at the box office, by the way? I mean, I've heard it's a bad year all around, but
horror usually does okay. I feel like I've seen more social media stuff about this movie than a lot. I actually haven't looked at the numbers.
It's at 26 million, and it came out 3 weeks ago, or like
couldn't have cost much more than 26 million, right?
Yeah, let's see what it looks pretty cheap. I mean, it's like, well, it's all takes place in like one setting, and there's only 3 actors in the whole movie.
I mean, there's a couple effects and things that would push it up, and Hugh Grant's probably not cheap.
It's a budget of 10 million.
Okay,
so they're making money. They're making money off this. But why are we talking about Heretic? We don't usually care about these little horror movies.
Well, this is part of the Granite Mountain Extended Universe. We're going to do a horror podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I bet certain fans would be like, "No way!" They were like jumping up and cheering, and now they're all disappointed.
Yeah, we'll be reviewing one horror every month or something. No,
yeah,
not gonna.
No, yeah, this is the Sister Missionary movie. So this is the movie is because I forgot the name of the movie, even though like we've been talking about it for a while. I was like, I had to Google Sister Missionary movie name, and it came up.
Wait, hold up. What's a sister missionary?
Yeah, so I don't think it's a secret that you and I are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, aka Mormons. And so sister missionaries are the female young missionaries for our church. So they are, you usually see them in pairs. They have black name tags. They're usually riding a bike or something like that. And they knock on your door and try to talk to you about Jesus or whatever. So
everyone sees the men, like the young men, are kind of one of the main symbols of the church.
Right, they've got the white shirt and tie. They're kind of iconic.
And back in, I think you and I, we both did missions. And back in our day, at least for my mission, 10% of the mission of like the actual voluntary missionary force, 10% was probably female. I don't know about in yours.
Yeah, depending on the mission, probably less where I was at, and more in certain areas.
But nowadays, it's probably more like 20-25%.
Yeah, it bumped up. They made a slight policy change because for those not in the know, in our day, it was like typically a girl only served a mission if she was kind of weird in some way, whether that means not very attractive or just like off-putting, or maybe just super
off-putting.
Yeah, off-putting in some way. Like big oafs tended to serve missions.
Oh my goodness!
As you know, the big oaf demographic is one of my core demographics.
The big oafs. If we had any female listeners, we'd be getting in trouble for this one. But
yeah, we don't, and so it's okay. But
yeah, and for I have like virtually no LDS audience outside of like my direct friends. So we're probably safe.
But so missions for men are essentially mandatory. Like they're not they're still voluntary. But like most young boys in America that are members of the church are kind of expected to do it. And always the distinction was for women, it was just optional. And typically that option was only taken if they couldn't find a husband. That was like the meme prior to, I think, 2014, right? Or was it 2012?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was around then. They made a policy change because typically men were allowed to go at 19 and women had to be older than 21. But they changed the age. And after they changed the age, basically like every other girl in the church was like, I'm doing it. Because essentially they weren't considered old maids if they went at 19 anymore. So
yeah.
A bit of insight into the culture. And so now it's a bit more normal for women to do it. And it's almost like it's closer to like doing a study abroad now than like kind of resigning you to being like an old maid who's given up
Yeah.
on life.
And we should be clear with our sort of bias here. I think the
Right.
general membership of the church sees a woman going on a mission as just good. They're just like, that's great. That's like really good she did that. Some
Yeah.
some people like
And
us,
they encourage it a lot.
yeah, and I think me and you and people we know are maybe a little more, well, we're definitely more like not skeptical of it, but like
Well,
we don't
especially
see it as
me.
a, yeah, we don't see it as a always good idea. Like, and especially because a lot of the women who choose to go do so in a spirit of sort of like credentialism, like I'm going to get a
Yes.
credential, I'm going to have like a sort of a live laugh love sort of thing, like
Yeah, it's like, oh, I get to see the world and it's going to be fun. Or they're like, I'm a woman and I'm independent and I'm going to serve a mission to show the men that I can do it or
yeah,
something.
so there's kind of like a girl boss element to it. So
Yeah,
that
very much so.
just to get our biases out of the way up front, just so people know, if this episode might draw in some more what we might call a normie LDS person,
Or a
um,
normie,
a
as we
normie,
call
yeah,
them.
and
But well,
yeah,
yeah, and to those people listening, like, look, I'm this is a comedy podcast, so I'm making jokes. But yeah, I'm definitely like personally like to expose the biases further. Like this has been my kind of meme I've been drum beating for years now. I'm kind of known as like the anti sister missionary guy in the LDS spaces,
yeah,
mainly just because I like to joke about it. I think it's funny, but that also to a certain extent, like we said, it's kind of like to a certain like serving a mission is like supposed to be considered like hard service for God, and sometimes I feel like the some of the women that do it are kind of seeing it more as like a fun vacation or something like that.
yeah. Like I said, it's like credential. It's resume box ticking sort of thing. Doing it for themselves, sort of thing. And then there is also this on the back end. There's this trend which is very observable of women who go on a mission and then come back, and they have to find a new mission, which conveniently tends to be like some sort of liberal project, like liberal political project, like they get suddenly very interested in gay rights or uh,
Yeah.
some aspect of feminism, freedom of choice or whatever.
Well, and stop me if I'm getting too deep into this before we get into the movie, because I bet we have some people who are like, I just want to know if the movie's any good. but but basically, what happens is when you're a missionary, you first go to what's called the missionary training center. There's a big one in Provo, and then there's a few around the world for different regions, essentially. But in so this big one in Utah, there's thousands of missionaries in one place, and you usually go there to learn the language of the country you're going to and kind of get prepped to like do missionary work. Like, what do you tell people? What do you say? That type of stuff. And in there, they start this like I noticed this on my mission is basically they're kind of raising proto feminists in the
Mm-hmm.
training center, partially because one of the biggest challenges is these are 18 to 25-year-old people in the prime of their lives, and you got to make sure they're not you know doing what those type of people tend to do. And so because the point of the mission is you're not supposed to be like dating or finding wives or anything. um and so they start this like meme in the missionary training center that's like, our sisters are so much better than our stinky, yucky elders. It's kind of like the boys are yucky and the girls are so great. And like they start that mainly to kind of keep them separated and be like, hey guys, just don't intermingle, all right? Let's just keep it chill. You can go do whatever once the mission's
Well,
over.
and it used to be the age. So the policy change you mentioned earlier was an age shift,
Mm-hmm.
and it used to be 21-year-old women and 19-year-old boys. Yeah, and even there I use the word women
Yes.
and boys. But like that 2 year, like, women are generally interested in men 2 years older than them, or two to
Right.
3, 4 years older. So that sort of used to help, like, uh keep them apart too, because the sisters would generally view the males as, like, as high schoolers. They're kind of like, yeah, we're not interested in you.
Oh, and we should probably be clear. Missionaries are expected to be celibate, similar to like a Catholic priest, but it's a temporary thing. It's only 2 years max, and then
Yeah,
you're
you
supposed
don't
to
date and
not
all that.
explicitly not be celibate after that. Um,
Yeah.
so because that's it. That comes up in the movie, kind of, in a very weird way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But so yeah, there's kind of this like air of like they kind of like baby the sisters, but also put them on a pedestal. And then what happens though as well is um, the missionaries themselves, the young men, end up getting into positions of leadership inside the mission. So like they'll like check up on the other ones, make sure they're doing okay and stuff like that. Which once again, this kind of comes up in the movie again in a very weird way and not accurate way. But so what happens is the young men are typical 19-year-old men, so they're kind of like crude and crass at times. Like, there's nothing special about them necessarily. Um, and so the women see this, and typically they come away with kind of a disdain for men because of that, because they're like, wow, these guys are like idiot kids essentially, and they're like trying to tell me what to do, but I know so much better. I'm older and wiser and not so stinky. And like, so then they get back and they're kind of like, oh, I hate men now. Like that's what they come away with.
Yeah. I had some stinky sisters in my mission though.
Oh yeah, they get very stinky.
Some of
They
them
all
did.
got acne on my mission because it was so humid.
Some of them did stink, and yeah, I mean, and the lifestyle is tougher on them than it is on the males. So
Yeah, on I was in South America, and so the men would all lose all their weight and get pretty fit because we were walking like 10 miles a day, and we'd get super tan too because we're right near the equator.
yeah,
And and then the women would get like acne. They'd all get fat because they typically go to like the nicer areas where like people feed them well. So they'd like gain weight and get acne, and then the men would like get super tan and thin and buff. But anyway,
anyway, yeah, yeah. That's so there's some
sorry
background.
if any sisters from my mission are listening. You got acne and gained weight. So sorry.
Okay, so this brings us to this movie, which is about
Oh,
two.
this is about a movie.
Yeah, this is actually, yeah. I tricked Cool Frasier. I said, hey, get on the line. We're just gonna talk. We're just gonna talk about sister missionaries.
We're gonna talk crap on sister
Yeah.
missionaries. I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
Always ready for
he
that.
he did a backflip. He jumped off a ledge just so he could get here. Um, so okay, so Heretic, which came out this year, it's about these two sister missionaries who are just doing their job. They're going door to door, and they meet some guy at one point, and they go to follow up with him, and
At
they
his
go to his
house.
house, and it's Hugh Grant in he's got his sort of awkward English charm, and you can tell something's not right with this guy. He's kind of a bad guy. Uh, and he kind of insists on them coming in, and they're
Yeah,
not.
it's somewhat
Yeah,
ominous. It's raining, and they're like, he's like, please come in, and they're like, oh, we can't come in unless there's another woman present, which is actually true.
yeah. So
They
like
got that
what?
right.
So that, yeah, they're not supposed to go in and be with one male. There should be a woman there as well.
Specifically to avoid what happens in this movie and other things.
Yeah. So that's the premise. It's a scary movie. So it's supposed to
Yeah,
be
and in the
scary.
trailer, how they kind of set it up is he's like, "Oh, my wife's in the back baking pie," and then it ominously they see a candle, and she slowly turns it around, and the candle says blueberry pie, and then they know he's up to no good. And
Yeah.
yeah, when we saw the trailer, we were like, "We're probably gonna have to cover this."
Yeah. Unfortunately, because I wasn't really interested in it. But I'm like, who's better positioned to talk about this? Like, no one, us.
Hmm.
This is our thing. I mean, this is something we can do. So, I mean, that's basically like the whole setup of the movie, and then from there, scary stuff ensues. It's a back and forth. They're trying to escape this guy. What'd you think of this as a movie?
Yeah, I was trying to think of that. I was kind of too upset by the first like 20 minutes of the movie to really enjoy it.
Yeah,
Because the first 20 minutes are terrible. Like, possibly the worst thing I've ever seen. Um, and so I was like, man, I can't believe I'm watching this. But I was like, we got to do it for the pod. Because initially I was like, I'll only watch it if Granite's going to make me. That's the only way I'll
yeah,
watch it.
and then I did.
And then you did. And but right off the bat, man, it's so bad. It's like the first conversation is terrible. We can talk about it later, but
Well,
like
we can
just
talk
the
about it now. We can talk about it now.
okay.
It's really weird. It like opens with the two girls. They're like on a park bench or something, taking a break, and they're sitting there and like, and the way that the dynamic they've established is there's the dark haired one who's like, you can tell she's lived a life. She's got some secrets. She's a little
She's a bit
more,
more wise. The other girl's like goofy and saying goofy stuff right off the bat.
yeah. The other girl's naive and blonde. And sort of she's meant to be your typical like
Utah
lifelong,
Mormon.
yeah, Utah, you know, whatever. Her grandparents were polygamous, sort of thing.
Yeah, and
And
she's like very gullible and dumb. And but the conversation they're talking about is condoms, which actually so first of all, this is kind of setting the theme of the movie, kind of
mhm,
this condom conversation. So I get it, but like, she's like, "Did you hear that Magnum condoms are not actually any bigger? It's just marketing that makes you think that." And which I don't know. I'm not a condom connoisseur, you know.
yeah,
Maybe we have people who know the ins and outs of all the different condoms. But yeah, that is the understanding, is that they're bigger. But I think just certain, like they have like a line of bigger ones. I don't know.
I
This
don't
is a
know,
dumb
yeah,
conversation. Doesn't matter. But they kind of have that discussion, and she's like, "No, I think they are bigger. My sister, said he had a big old dong. Her ex-husband had a big old dong." So they're talking about like dongs right
yeah.
off the get-go. Which, to be honest, I don't know if that's what sister missionaries talk about. I assume
Oh,
probably not, but
well,
I
no,
wouldn't put it past them.
I bet this exact topic does probably this sort of stuff. I'm sure they talk about, but where they go from here is really really strange.
Well, and then she's like, "Well, wouldn't that's just like how people grew up thinking the Book of Mormon was false, but they never actually read it. So that's the same thing." And I'm like, "That's a very weird thing to say, because
Yeah.
like the, the dumb girl is kind of talking as if she's like, why would anyone not believe what we say? It's obviously right." Which, like, I feel like there might be some people like that in like small rural Utah towns, but for the most part, we're very keenly aware that we're kind of weird and different than others. you
Yeah.
know,
And any
I feel
any
like
any part of that notion would be beaten out of you within 2 or 3 days on a mission.
yes, yes, or just on the if you've been on the internet before, you realize, hey, most people don't think like I do.
Yeah.
Like we acknowledge we have some different ideas, than the mainstream. That like that's not up for like nobody's deluded into thinking, wow, these people are all just deceived because they didn't get the Book of Mormon when they were babies.
Yeah. And then this naive girl goes on. She's saying something like she stumbled upon an adult film or something, and
Yes, that was worse. So
it's
yeah,
really weird. And she's saying like, "Oh, I watched this like adult film," and she like doesn't know the word pornography. She like pronounces it incorrectly, and
she says pornography.
yeah. And they were filming, and then someone in the other room tells them to be quiet, and so they go from having fun to suddenly like feeling ashamed because they know someone's listening to them, and she's like, and that's sort of like, she's like, and I could see on the actress's face that like she knew what she was doing was wrong. I don't really, I didn't. It
Yeah,
was
she's like they knew they were sinning, and that's when I knew that God was real.
yeah,
Like that's a bit much. and to a certain extent, I get what they're doing. The idea, it's the same idea as like a sexy nun. They're like, what if these innocent sister missionaries were actually talking about porno and condoms? Like,
Yeah.
it's like very like voyeuristic in its nature, and
Mhm.
like kind of gross if you think about it. But at the same time, like no self-respecting member would be like, I had this spiritual experience watching porn.
Watching a
Like, no way.
pornography.
Yeah, pornography.
And
It's like insulting how like titillating, but also like portray us as like dum dums. And at the same time, I'm conflicted because everyone knows my opinions on sister missionaries, so I'm all for it. Like, go after them, but
so you're thinking like, on one hand, sister missionaries, they are kind of messed up, but on the other hand, not like this.
yes, yeah, exactly. They're not like how they're portrayed is very dishonest, but at the same time, like I get it because like to a certain extent, I've seen stuff like that. Like I knew a guy who like I had a I had a companion on the mission whose dad was gay, and he was like, "Oh, he's going to outer darkness, which is like a version of hell." And I was like, "Well, I mean, he could always repent or whatever." And he had never crossed his mind that like somebody could come back to church if they left. And so like I don't know, like you run into people in the church who are kind of very naive. So it does exist, and maybe like they're not trying to say this is what they're all like, but like there's more stuff that happens later on in the movie too that is just like, well, this is just totally dishonest. Like,
Yeah, so I got you on this path by asking what you thought about the movie. You said the
yeah,
first 20 minutes is pretty bad. And yeah, my initial response at the beginning of the movie was like, very stilted, awkward dialogue.
uh huh.
No one really talks like this, and especially not these sister missionaries. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
but at a certain point, I'm like, okay, what if these were nuns or evangelical missionaries? Like, am I just biased because of my point of view, right? Like,
I tried
am
to
I
do
just
that.
letting that
Yeah.
ruin the movie for me? And to a certain extent, it did. But I tried watching, and first of all, the movie does take kind of a different direction than what you would assume with how they're portraying religious people in it.
Uh huh.
Um, and to a certain extent, there's almost a acknowledgement of like Reddit atheism is stupid.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I appreciate that. Like and what I realized is the people giving it good reviews have maybe never thought of that before. Like they've never encountered the idea that like Reddit atheists are cringe.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, this has a
and
91% on Rotten Tomatoes critic score
oh
and like
really?
77 user score, which feels
Wow.
way too high for me. But
But yeah, just thinking of it as like a horror suspense film, like there are elements of it that are interesting, I guess. And like the idea of like being trapped in the house is kind of scary and tense.
uh-huh.
The I think Hugh Grant is legitimately kind of a fun character to watch.
Yeah.
Like I don't really have an issue with his acting or him portraying this guy because he's kind of funny in a way.
Well, I should say I my like first I think my actual first day as a missionary when I got to the country I was serving in, I basically met this guy. The
Oh,
guy in the
really?
movie. Pretty much. Like it was like one of the first doors I ever knocked on. And the
Wow.
dude opens the door and he's like, "Oh, I've been waiting for you." Like he's like, "I hoped you'd come," or something like that. Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
"Come on in." We go right in. He grabs a huge Bible off the shelf, like this comically large Bible, like sort of a decorative family Bible thing or whatever. And he like slams it down on the table, and then he's like, "Let's get into it." And then he starts doing like some of the stuff that the guy in the movie's doing, like asking us all these like what he thinks are like really super hard questions. And
Uh huh.
like yeah, it didn't go anywhere. It was just the same. The guy in my experience, he was a Christian, just a kind that didn't like us. So
Yeah.
um
That's more common, actually.
yeah,
I
but he
although I had thousands of people like this, you know.
But he had the same like
Um,
argumentation style and like a similar
yeah,
accent and stuff, and like uh,
that's interesting.
so a lot of the early part of this movie did remind me of that interaction that I had like on my like first day.
Yeah, so to a certain extent, like they handle certain things really well, I think, but certain things are just so far off from reality that it's just it really takes you out of the movie if you are a member of the church, and if you're not, like, and you're Christian, I feel like it bug you a little bit, but the part that's annoying about his character is he's kind of portrayed as like he's thought everything through and he's just ahead of
Yeah.
everything, but like he really, like, the arguments he brings up are like elementary level.
Well,
They're
yeah,
not
like
like so scary,
some
you
of his
know.
he's like, well, you claim to believe in Christ, but here are 20 different historical figures who are similar to Christ in some way.
Yeah, here's
Therefore,
Horus and Krishna and like and yeah, and it's like,
well, and then
first
he
of all, if you're a member of the church, we, like, this is part of our doctrine. Like, the idea that the Christ story exists in all cultures is like explicitly something we teach.
yeah,
Like,
he's like the fact that this exists in other places means that you just cobbled your
you just
version of
copied
Christ
it.
from all these
Iterations.
others. And like, yeah, people brought that up all the time on my mission. We say like, yeah, of course, like, you know, a lot of
Right.
people had
This is like a
some,
core belief of ours.
yeah, a lot of people had some, they had teachings of Christ. They had been taught about this, like, you know, this God who had just, you know, come to earth basically.
Well, and in the
Uh,
Bible, even if you're a Christian, in the Bible, like, Abraham is near Egypt, and like there's apocrypha where Abraham is teaching the Egyptians, like that's a concept that, like, we have, you know.
yeah. And the sisters in the movie don't like, they don't know how to refute this, which is like, you know, there's a thing with this movie where they did a lot of homework, like surface level homework. They put together a word bank of like terms that,
Yes, they kept saying like Relief Society president and and bishop and stuff like that. Like, yeah, they had the right words,
yeah, they got a bunch
but
of
they
words,
used
but
them wrong.
they didn't really research, I guess, how these people might actually talk, which they don't really have to do. You could still make a good movie with just using sort of a one dimensional or two dimensional um, version of the sisters, but
Right,
they
and I
kept.
don't think the movie was attempting to portray the life of a sister missionary accurately, as like a core principle of the movie. Like,
Well,
that
it's
wasn't
weird.
something they were attempting to do.
It's weird though because they insist upon it. Like they keep bringing these things
Hmm.
up, and like I was when I saw the trailer, I assumed they would they would use the aesthetics of an LDS sister missionary, but then kind of water it down or anonymize it a little bit.
Hmm.
Okay, which would have made more sense given their like kind of lack of uh, actual familiarity. So that would have made more sense to me, and probably could have made for a better movie. Not tried so hard, basically, to try and introduce
Yeah.
like LDS specific doctrinal things, which they didn't like really seem to understand.
Right, right. But I guess getting back to the original question, to put a cap on it, like, it's better than I thought it was in the first 25 minutes. I'll say that. But other than kind of the novelty of kind of the twists in it, it's not really good. I can't really say it's a good movie. It's kind of like, at its best, it's a bit trite. Oh, well, like, la la la. Like, that's the best I could say. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're with me on that.
yeah, I'm pretty much the same place. I mean, I think there's aspects to it as just like sort of a low expectation horror movie. It's okay. Um,
Uh-huh.
Part of the problem though
Yeah,
is like,
like, there's interesting aesthetics. I think that inside of the house is very interesting. The kind of weird cult aesthetic is interesting. But beyond that, like, there's not much good to say about it. I don't know.
yeah, and you know, it's almost 2 hours, and
It
I,
went by fast for me, though.
oh, I felt a lot of the middle section, them sort of like arguing and the uncertainty and stuff, just dragged on.
No, you're right, because I was like kind of waiting for the horror to get started, and by the time the horror starts, there's like 20 minutes left.
Yeah, they needed to get they can my they needed to get this down to 90 or below. This is not
Yeah,
a.
I'm with you on that.
There's nothing about this that needs more than 90 minutes.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, hey, I'm hiding something beneath the surface, but also I'm proving I'm smarter than you, and that dialogue happens for about an hour of the movie,
Yeah, and they
and it's
repeat.
like, okay, we
Yeah,
get it, like move along, you know?
yeah. And they repeat. The Hugh Grant character repeats himself quite a lot. Just sort of
Yeah, quite often.
going over his sort of things. Um, so let's see, where do we go from here?
Should we conserve spoilers for those who are considering watching it? Actually, we
Um,
shouldn't, because just don't watch it. You don't need to. But
yeah.
if like what we've said so far intrigues you, uh, you probably knowing the spoilers won't ruin the movie for
We'll
you. It's
we'll go
still
full
okay.
we'll go full spoilers just so everyone knows. Just
Yeah,
just know it's going to happen. Okay, so I'm going to go to the sort of the early living room, like the initial scene when they're
yeah.
in the living room or
There's
whatever.
like two living rooms. You get one living room, then you go to the other living room. So we're
Yeah,
talking about the first living room.
yeah, and so they're sitting down and they're building up this. They're kind of implying that the dark haired sister, uh, she's got a secret. She's like,
She's like not really on board with the whole church thing as the other girl.
and it's strange though because she's successful as a missionary. She says she has a lot of convert baptisms,
Yes. And also
and
it's weird because women literally do not have to do it. They can just not do a mission. You don't have to pretend to be into it, you know.
yeah. But she's like fairly successful, and she seems to know the doctrine better. At least the like fake movie
Yeah,
version of the doctrine. She seems more educated. But
definitely
then
smarter,
they
less
keep
naive.
dropping little things, like say like that, kind of implying like she knows something. She's going to do something. Like
She's got a secret.
yeah, like is she in on it with this bad guy, or is she? Because the guy obviously wants to test their faith. So like it's a kind of implied that she doesn't have a lot of faith. So is she gonna, is she gonna fail the test, or is she gonna like whatever, or is she gonna win by denouncing her faith or tricking him or something like that? And
Right. And the guy kind of slow rolls a reveal that, oh, I'm actually an expert on religions and I know everything about your religion.
yeah, I like in the I think it's funny when they're meeting, and he's like, I presume you're both from Utah, and like the blonde one is
Uh-huh.
like, yep, I'm from Ogden or something like that, and then the other one is like, well, Philadelphia originally, which
Yeah.
I actually see this all the time. I see
That's a
I see
very common thing that happens.
I
Yeah.
see all the time where like someone in Utah or someone who's LDS, they're like slightly embarrassed of it, or like they want to like distinguish themselves to be like, well, I,
I'm
I was
not that kind of LDS. Yeah.
like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not a dumb
As
person
if
from
being
Utah.
born in Utah makes you an idiot.
Yeah, I was from Philadelphia. I just thought that was a funny. So that one, I guess, that they kind of did their homework on that one, knowing that like the sort
Well,
of
and
like,
supposedly that girl was a member of the church at some time. The actress.
yeah, I've heard that. I don't, yeah.
Let me look it up.
So I've already kind of gotten into this, but they include way more church references than I had anticipated, even including like names of more recent church leaders. That was kind of strange.
She was born in Chicago and raised in a Mormon household, according to
Wow.
Wikipedia. Her middle name is Bathsheba. Maybe you knew there was a problem when you named her Bathsheba, huh?
Oh, really? That's her actual name,
Yeah,
middle name.
Sophie Bathsheba
Oh,
Thatcher.
and she has cutting scars.
Well, that's what I thought, but it's revealed it's not cutting scars.
Wait, what was it? I may have missed it.
Oh,
What is it actually?
well, it's when he. Spoiler alert: she dies,
Yeah.
or does she? And she has. He cuts into that scar and pulls out um, the birth control device.
Oh, okay. It wasn't a cutting scar. Okay. I was a little
Yeah,
confused about that
he
part.
noticed the surgery of the birth control device, and we can talk about that. I don't know.
Well, sure, we can get into that now. I mean,
Man, there's a lot going on in that scene,
it
but
gets a little
basically,
muddy. Yeah.
this is one of the big like glaring, like, okay, like where he's basically now showing his power levels. He's revealed he's a psycho killer, and killed the one girl, cuts out the thing, and tries to pretend that this is evidence she's a robot, which is all a bit silly. And the one girl who has been playing the role of a dunce the entire time, who doesn't know what's going on, is all of the sudden now she's like, well, I saw your hair was wet and I saw this and I knew that. And as soon as you did this, and she's like, I know she's not a robot. That's a birth control thing. And he's like, well, why would a missionary have a birth control thing? And he's like, she hid it because she knew if the elders found out, they would ridicule her and kick her out of the church, which is like not true. Now, technically, you're not supposed to have sex before you're married if you're a Christian of any type. But technically, you could have a birth control implant and go on a mission. That would be fine.
I would assume
need it.
I would assume a lot of sister missionaries are taking birth
Are
control
on birth
pills,
control, yeah.
or have some other form of it. Yeah, just for whatever, just because like Western society just put their young women on birth control.
Yeah, but implying, oh, she's having sex, which like if you're having sex on the mission, they would just say, okay, you can go home now. Like you don't have to stay here. You're done.
Yeah, there's
and
not
so
a
they would
lot
send you home but you're not like ostracized. You would just go home and live your normal life. You could still go to church and be fine. Like.
Yeah, it's a very unusual plot point because they are implying that she's, sneaking out at night or whatever to meet up and hook up with guys or something. But like
they don't explicitly imply that, but implicitly they're trying to imply that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I I'm sure there are many instances of sisters doing that, but
right, these are young people, and they sometimes have sex. It's the thing that happens.
Yeah, but it's a little unusual. It seems like maybe for the sisters to be doing that because for the reason you say,
because it's totally optional. Like if they want to go have sex, they would just not do a mission. It's fine.
Yeah,
but yeah, so she suddenly like wisens up with that and is like now like a detective deducing everything and like deciphering his like spiel of trying to control her. But yeah, so the guy like notices that, and then he knows that there's a secret to be had or something.
Yeah.
Also, he then brings up like Joseph Smith polygamy, and he's like, I think he was a misogynist and blah blah blah, and which is like hilarious in that that is something someone might say, but this guy's literally got women locked up in his basement, like, and you're worried about him being a misogynist.
Yeah, and he says stuff like that, and they don't treat it like
silly.
They don't treat it like hypocrisy. They treat it like his actual opinion. Like,
right. Like, well, of course, religion is bad because some of the leaders are misogynists, and she doesn't even really refute that. She's like, it was just blah 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 blah, but it's like you're literally like lying to and trapping women in your house, but you're concerned that this guy, was a misogynist in the 1800s.
Yeah, and it's sort of like it's sort of like for the audience saying like, hey, audience, just by the way, Joseph Smith was a misogynist. Like, okay,
yeah,
and then it kind of in that they have like no defense. They like don't. They act like super scared by this question. Like, which if you're actual missionary, you get the polygamy question every single day. At least
that's like the hello world of being a missionary. Like, that's like, you got to know what are you going to say when they ask about polygamy? What are you going to say when they ask about 1978?
Yeah. No one cared about 1978 really. I mean, they did. It came up, but it wasn't as big.
But that's something you would be like, someone might ask this question.
Yeah. You should have I'm sure everyone asks now, but but yeah, the girls they're like super uncomfortable by it. Although the girl that's seemingly not particularly observant or like doesn't. And at one point in the movie, she says like she's like never tried to find out if it was true. She's just her character doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Oh, right.
She's like edgy and smart and like world wise, and she went on a mission, but also like doesn't have strong feelings about whether it's true or not. That's like
Right. She's like, I'm just here because I have to be, kind of. But like literally, like for women, like you don't have to do it. So like you don't have to go like tell people to get baptized if you don't
but
want.
then so earlier they kind of portray her as the one that's like not particularly like devout, but then she is defensive about the polygamy thing. She's like, well, and she gives
Mm-hmm.
this reason, which is not really the official reason, or even really
Right.
necessarily an accurate reason, in my opinion. But she like seems to care, which is, I didn't see that coming necessarily.
Right. And then in the later scene in the second living room when he's does his whole spiel on like there's different Christ stories everywhere. She like has some kind of like apologetics light defense, which started out okay actually, because she was like, look, this is super insincere and stupid, and you're just being like an idiot about this.
Yeah.
But then she like doesn't really follow it up with much, which like there would be more to like slam on him, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, there's a couple things back in that first living room. So
Yeah.
the blondie girl, she talks about being reincarnated
Yes,
as
as
a
a
butterfly.
butterfly.
We're like,
The Kwaku
okay,
moment.
like, yeah, quaky. Like, no, we don't teach that. Like, no, like she would not say that. Like,
Right. Yeah. That would be like, yeah, that would be like a Catholic nun being like, I can't wait to, go through samsara and join with Vishnu. Like, it would be a weird thing to say. You'd be like, what?
Yeah. And then, okay. Then also during this scene, they list off fast food places.
Mm-hmm. And they say Burger King is best, which is insane.
Her list didn't seem to make any sense. They had like In-N-Out fairly low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they like list all of them, and then they're like Taco Bell. We don't talk.
They're talking about
Bell.
like Hardee's versus Carl's Jr.
Yeah, and they arrive at Wendy's.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. The movie's just stupid. It may have been better if it wasn't so stupid, but there's so much stupidity happening in the movie. It's hard to just look over it. And especially at the end when they're like trying to say, oh, this was actually a deep movie. It's like, no, this was a stupid movie.
Well, maybe it's people seem to like it. So maybe it's sort of I don't like this.
That's so exactly. So what I was thinking, like with kind of these refutations of kind of Mr. Reddit atheist man, because he with the fast food thing, he's like, well, I realized all religion is fast food and I was sick of eating it. So that's what I learned. Yeah. And to a certain extent, I do think there are people, not just Mormons, all kinds of people who maybe are faithful but haven't really thought about it ever. Like they're like, yeah, I believe in God, but they don't really have a reason to. They probably don't read the Bible much. They don't, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe them watching this movie is like a huge awakening of like, oh, wow, like there is a reason to believe in God.
Yeah.
Which,
I can see that.
Speaking of which, her whole speech, like, I was like, man, the big refutation of this is just to be like, look, dude, it's real. Christ did exist and he did die for your sins. Yeah. And there's not really a Reddit atheist refutation for that, like if for actual genuine faith.
Which is more most missionaries learn to eventually go. Like,
right. And to a certain extent, they do that with the dumb girl where she's like, look, I don't know all the reasons why, I just believe it and I'm going to pray. Right. Yeah. And so that I actually appreciated. I was like, that is actually like, even though it was in the dumbest way possible, that's real. Yes, there are people who have no apologetics, who cannot answer why Joseph Smith was a polygamist, who have no refutation for his monopoly spiel. But they just believe, and they're going to believe no matter what. And I think there is something like beautiful to that, right? But once again, like I said, it's in the dumbest possible portrayal of that it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Then unless there's anything more from that, like that first sort of that first very long scene in the living room.
No, I think
Um,
that's about it. Other than like they should have tried to like break down the door
yeah,
when they started noticing something was up. Like they definitely shouldn't have gone deeper into his house.
yeah.
Well, should we talk at all about like this is non-movie related, but should we talk at all about like the realisticness of like a guy tricking them to go into his house and then being gross or whatever?
Oh, I mean it. You mean like, does it happen? Like, it certainly happens.
Right. Like is the premise of the movie at all like is this a scary thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make a much scarier movie if you stuck to a more realistic texture. I think about
Right, not like a weird like cultist guy with
like I
ghosts.
I had experiences where you'd go into someone's house and you're right on this border, you're right on this edge. You're trying to be respectful because they invited you in, but also
Uh-huh.
you have to be uh, cautious. And like I remember having experiences where like we'd be talking for a while, but like things just felt really off, and then there's like suddenly someone else in the room, like other person would show up, and like wait, like you never told us anyone else was here, and like that person seems weird, and um or like a guy
Yeah,
who
you're
like
going into people's homes. You also don't know anything about these people. Like you're supposed to vet them a bit, but you're to a certain extent missionaries end up trying to talk to whoever will give them the time of day, which ends up being like weirdos and homeless.
yeah
Um, which I advocate against, by the way. You can talk to normal people on your mission.
yeah
Um, but yeah, just the nature of the job is, most people are not interested in talking to you, you know?
yeah. There's
And
plenty of
so,
uneasiness and like scary stuff that happens. Yeah, without like some guy putting you in his Rube Goldberg torture dungeon or whatever.
yeah, and I never heard of any like explicitly dangerous stuff, but I mean, I definitely like on my mission there were the patoteros, the guys on like motorcycles that would like uh, roll up and rob you at knife point usually. It never happened to me, but it happened to people on the mission. But that's just like petty crime for South America. That's just typical. And then,
Yeah, there are
but
periodically there have been in real life instances of people targeting missionaries either because they're like an easy target or they have something against like the church or something. And so yeah, they do
yes,
like commit violence or something against them. There's I mean a mission.
well, I guess I was shot at on my mission by someone who hated the church.
Oh wow. Uh say more if you can.
Oh man, it's not. Oh man, do I tell it? Should I tell the story?
Sure.
Story available at the end of the episode for premium subscribers. Go to substack.com to become a premium subscriber.
And so you were talking about the shooting, yeah, because dangerous stuff does happen to
Well,
missionaries.
yeah, dangerous stuff happens. Also, some sisters on my mission had a couple guys break into their place and steal stuff while they were sleeping. Um,
Yeah, that's I've heard of that. And for as risky as some of it sounds, like because you're out there, you're putting yourself out there, and especially like
uh,
two young women, and they're especially vulnerable. It is actually pretty rare that anything really does happen, but stuff happens.
yeah, that was like the only real one that happened. There's definitely like dangers, but like other than that, I never really feared for my life or anything. Um, but yeah,
There was that
definitely scarier
famous
for women.
there was that famous thing in Texas in the 70s where that guy, I think he was like a former member or something. He abducted some missionaries came over to visit him, and he like locked him
Hmm.
in the house and killed him and then cut him up. And it was around the time of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so some people say that it inspired the movie, but I don't think they're actually connected in any way. It just happened to be the same time, but um, stuff happens. Not too much. Oh, that guy, the Texas guy, by the way, he like got away with it. He
Oh,
like
really?
he like briefly was imprisoned or something, got out on a technicality, then like fled to Europe, and they like
Oh,
later
dang.
later determined it was obvious he did it. Maybe DNA
We
later
need to
came
get
out.
that guy.
He's dead, I think. He died like in England or
Okay.
something. He got arrested in
Good.
England too, I think, for other stuff. But
That seems like kind of a bad guy.
so anyway, all this is to say like there's a lot you could actually do with this premise. I don't think this movie is that interesting with it, but because it has kind of a cartoony quality to it, including the set and stuff. And the set is kind of cool, but at the same time, it is kind of cartoony. So
yeah, it's like not real.
Yeah, it's like getting kidnapped by like Willy Wonka or something.
And there's kind of like a cartoon premise of like, oh, my lock is on a timer. Like you can't kick a door.
Yeah.
Again, I guess it's like metal reinforced, which he says at the beginning or whatever.
Like, those little girls couldn't kick a door. A lot of doors could easily keep them in.
Yeah.
But this movie could have played out a lot differently. We have lots of different types of missionaries. Like, imagine if some Tongan guys had showed up at his door.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't be a very long movie.
Just tackle him. Well, that's the other thing. Like, well, and I guess maybe this is addressed in the movie because he's like, look, these women just do what I say because I'm in control. Which I guess is like the feminist message of the movie. It's like women shouldn't listen to men. Maybe. I don't know.
He does kind of say that. He's like, his big speech, he leads all up to this like thing where he's like, and you did everything I said because of you're scared, because control, like you allowed me to control you, just like you allow your church to control you, which is kind of a weird point.
And it's like, dude, you locked them in, and you're male and they're female. Like,
that I hated that part because it's like, well, they didn't let you do anything. Like you actually just
you lied to them and tricked them and said your wife was in the house.
Yeah.
Which maybe she was. Maybe she was one of those trapped ladies.
I think that was the implication. She's like she was
the older one.
And it's very strange too. He does this thing where he claims like, so he's like railing on religion and he's kind of implying he's like an atheist, but then he's like, I've actually discovered real miracles and like I can keep this woman alive forever. She's supposed to be dead, but she's still alive. What's he doing? I didn't really get all that stuff. Like,
well, yeah, he's kind of like, I planned this all from the beginning, and I can bring. He briefly tries to be like, I'm going to trick them into believing this like witchcraft narrative, I guess. But then it's revealed like he actually is just killing the women and has multiple women dressing up.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And so he's like just like a psycho killer and not like some kind of cult leader. I guess.
Not even particularly interested in religion, just likes killing.
Yeah, just likes killing women and trapping them in his basement. And I don't get why he was keeping them moist. But yeah, he's like spraying them every once in a while. I thought it was going to be like, oh, he's a weed guy. He's growing weed in his basement. That's why there's a sprinkler.
There's something funny about this too. Let's get to you mentioned this part earlier, but one of the only times he seems really upset that people are copying the Jews.
Yeah, he's very defending of Judaism.
And he's like, there should be more Jews in the world.
Because it's the original. They got, and he's making the comparison to Monopoly, that Monopoly apparently plagiarized another game, and the other game no one's heard of, but everyone has heard of Monopoly. But as the lady points out, she's like, well, nobody's Jewish because of the Holocaust. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Should be laughing at this. But she's like, her big like gotcha is like, well, there's not more Jews because they were all killed in the Holocaust. And I'm like, historically, I don't think that's accurate, but like, I guess that's a point you could make.
Well, and then he goes on to be like, you see the Jews, he kind of implies like the Jews are good and decent because they don't recruit like you.
Right. There's no Jewish missionaries.
He's like, the Jews, they came up with all this stuff. You guys watered it down. The Bible waters it down, and then the Book of Mormon waters it down even more, and Islam waters it down even more.
Well, and I thought he was going to be like, oh, and the Jews stole it from, the Zoroastrians or the Syrian whatever. Yeah. Like, I thought he was going to go that route where like, oh, they stole it from Ishtar and Baal or whatever. But he didn't even do that. See, I know I could do this better than Hugh Grant.
He's just a midwit. Like, he doesn't actually even know that much.
Right. For all his like bookmarks in the book. Also, who uses like loose bookmarks in their book to mark passages? You use sticky notes. Like they have stuff for that. You don't use like because he chucks the book and it all comes out.
Yeah.
It seems very reckless.
Yeah.
That's my issue with the movie, is using like plain pieces of paper to mark your passages.
That whole Monopoly thing he like goes on way too long.
It was a good visual, I guess. Like I was like, oh, this would make a good like internet graphic.
Yeah, it's a little tedious though. It goes on too long. And then he does the thing with the Hollies and Radiohead and Lana Del Rey and like maybe the best part of the movie is when he like sings Creep, one line of Creep. I guess that's kind of funny. Yeah. And the girls don't really know the song. He's like,
yeah, which is funny.
He's like, well, perhaps you know Lana Del Rey. Like,
yeah. Which like that's like funny too, to be like, I'm basing my whole religious worldview on the fact that like musicians sometimes use similar melodies or copy melodies.
Yeah.
Like that's like not necessarily disproving Jesus, guy.
Some people copied a board game, some people copied a song. Therefore, the
religion
Jews
is all fake. Yeah.
Anyway, really tedious stuff there.
But yeah, she does do a good thing where she's like, look, Muslims even reject Christ's divinity. And I was like, wow, they went there. I guess they were soft and easy on the Jews and went hard on the Muslims.
Yeah. Funny.
You got to do an early life check on the director.
Funny how that happens.
Oh, I looked into the director, though. He did Quiet Place.
That's right, yeah.
The director-writer duo-ship here. They both worked on Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Which is one of our, like, supposedly secretly based movies.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think it's all right.
Yeah.
Movie.
Well, some people have postulated that it's actually a metaphor for not being able to say right-wing takes, and you have to be secret about it. But with this movie, maybe we're onto something with that.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think it's secretly based, but there's I guess, would you say this is a faith promoting movie? Or is it just like trying to cash in on like vague, like, but did she see the butterfly?
Yeah, well, the girls never really betray their faith. They kind of go through the motions of pretending they will. They're like, okay, like you're a big smart guy. You've convinced us. We choose disbelief. Yeah. And then they go down that door and it's like, it's the same as what the other door would have taken to or something like that. But they try a bunch, like none of it ever seems to work. They try to like appeal to his like vanity and stuff. Like, oh, well, you're so smart. Maybe you could explain stuff to us and we'll just believe you. And that doesn't really go anywhere though. So it's not really, I don't know. Although
that did kind of ring true, because sometimes you get people, like you said, you get people like that on your mission and you're like, all right, just get to what you want to do. What is it you're going to say? Just say it. Like, come on.
Just say your dumb thing.
Yeah, say your dumb thing. And so we can be like, okay, well, when you want to talk to us, let us know.
Yeah.
Bye.
Because we have guys, imagine if like, I don't know if I want to name drop anyone here, but I don't want to make fun of, I'm not making fun. This is a sincere thing, but like, our friend Jesse, what if Jesse had done? Jesse would have owned that guy. They would have
owned him completely.
They would have talked for 12 hours. The guy would have killed himself.
Yes.
Jesse would have talked to him.
As many have after conversations with Jesse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been owned.
Nothing but love for Jesse.
Did you like Topher Grace?
Wait, is he in this? What do you mean the person? Like what do you mean?
Maybe I'm mixing him up, but yeah, he's in this.
That's Topher Grace?
Okay, that's what I said. That's what I said when I looked it up. That's Topher Grace. What do you think?
Oh, are you on the page now? Do you know the answer?
Yeah, it's Topher.
Really?
The elder.
I did not realize that.
Also, this is one of the inaccuracies. Elders are always in pairs. There's not like an elder that's an old dude who checks up on the sister missionaries.
They make it look like he's a priest that like lights candles at the local chapel. So,
which is, once again, that's fine. It's fine. I didn't like get upset at it, but like it was funny.
I did not realize that was him, but yeah,
he's in a beard. Bearded Topher looks a bit different.
Okay, yeah, I was going to talk about that though. Like he he like realizes they're gone too long. This movie implies that the girls like live at the church or something. And so
Yeah,
he
yeah.
notices they're not back or something, which they don't live at the church. They would live in their own apartment, and he would have no idea if they didn't get back.
Well, you usually like check in, but
Yeah.
depending on the mission, it's either like at the end of the day when you would be going to bed, or like only like a couple times a week.
Yeah.
Because there would be times on my mission you could definitely get to some shenanigans and no one would know.
Yeah. We didn't really do the check-in thing. The sisters just, called us if there was a problem, but they didn't check in every night or anything.
You didn't have to call numbers?
We didn't do the daily numbers, no.
All right, yeah, we didn't either.
But okay, so yeah, he shows up at the house and he's like, "Hey, the girls from our church said they were going to come over here earlier, and I haven't heard from them. Have you seen them?" And then the guy's just like, "Nope," and that's all.
Yeah.
So not a lot.
I thought he was going to like kill him or something. Like,
Same,
that was kind
same.
of like a nothing. That was like a misdirect almost.
It was just sort of nothing, just sort of like a waste.
Yeah,
Apparently,
it's
it's
just
Topher Grace.
Yeah, here's Topher Grace for a bit.
Okay, I mean, there's not much more to say about this. Then the end is strange.
We can run through it for those who aren't going to watch the movie. So basically, he gives them two doors. They choose to go down the door of belief after kind of doing a pseudo own of the guy, and he's like, "You're going to want to kill yourself if you go down there," and then, which is not true apparently. He tries to kill both of them, but. Yeah, and at this point, I'm kind of like, well, where's the horror? Like, is there going to be horror? And that's when the horror starts. So you see, like, there's like cult stuff, and then they're like in a cave. His basement is a cave, apparently. And there's like a weird looking lady.
Yeah, what kind of prop? This is a weird property. He's got an interesting.
I know. I was like, man, how would you renovate this? That's what I was thinking about. But yeah, so there's like a weird lady with like her face cut off, and she's like in robes, and then she pulls out like a gross looking blueberry pie, and she starts eating it, and he's like, it's got like witch's herbs in it, and she's gonna die. And so I thought they were gonna be like, oh, she can like stop her heartbeat and come back to life with witch herbs, which is like a thing. There's like weird herbs that make you die periodically or something. That's like a thing.
Oh yeah, like okay, yeah.
So I was like, oh, it's going to be revealed he's actually satanic and he's got like magic powers to like with these herbs or something. Like that's what I thought they were going. And then he comes down and he's like, hey, we got the herbs thing. And he starts arguing. So the lady dies. Then the lady comes back to life and says like a prophecy. And he's like, look, you got the prophecy. And then the smarter and cuter girl is like, you're an idiot. We're gonna get you because you're an idiot. And they stole a knife, and so the other lady's gonna like stab him in the back, which I don't get why she didn't, especially after so then he's like has a box cutter and slices her throat.
Yeah, she's the timid
and I'm like,
one.
that doesn't seem like a very smart guy thing to do. Like, what did you prove with just slicing someone's throat?
Yeah.
Like, I guess that like now you're a smart guy. You just are a psycho killer.
Yeah, that's what a redditor does when you say, "Can a woman get pregnant?" He just cuts her throat.
What is a woman? Slice, your throat's cut.
Yeah.
The trannies would actually like that. Actually.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
but
can a man get pregnant? That's Can a man get pregnant and he just like shoots you?
But yeah, so he kills her, and then the lady just kind of freaks out, even though she's got a knife in her pocket. And I don't get why the dark-haired girl didn't keep the knife. That doesn't make sense.
He said this doesn't make sense. He's like he's watching me too close. Like he knows I'm the smart one. He thinks you're the dumb one, so you keep the knife, which is dumb.
Yeah, and so then she doesn't stab him, even though that would have been the perfect time to stab him. And then he's like, look. She's not human, and we live in a simulation. So they do like a simulation theory thing, and
which felt like is out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's out of nowhere, and he kind of just like, yeah, never mind. After like 2 minutes,
she's like, I don't think so. He's like, okay, you got me.
Yeah, so he cuts the thing out of her arm and is like, look, she's a robot, and she's like, no, that's a birth control thing, and and then like he's like, well, you see what I'm doing now, and then she's like. Using her like powers of deduction to realize there's got to be a secret entrance. She finds the secret entrance and goes into it without any questions, which seems like a bad idea again.
Yeah.
But then sees the girl's bike lock is locking a room. She had the wrong bike lock, so she's like, oh, he's been planning it all along. And she gets into the room. There's ladies locked up in there that apparently he's done this to before. He's got like a bunch of ladies locked up.
Yeah, this town just has lots of ladies missing, and he's,
right, and nobody's ever investigated him.
Yeah.
So, because he definitely would have gotten owned if he killed both of them, and anyway, because like the guy would have known, like the cops would have checked. You'd think.
Hope.
Yeah,
You'd
but and then he's like, "Look, I control women, and I'm so powerful because I have control, and that's the only religion is control." And then, how did they get back to the other room?
Well, she stabs him.
Well, she stabs him in the other room, right? Or she stabs him in there.
Yeah, with all the other those women in cages.
The women, yeah. She stabs him in like the neck-ish area, like the mouth. Stabs him in the mouth. I never want to get stabbed in the mouth, man. Yeah, and also I'm not big on like gore stuff, so I may have liked the movie better if there wasn't these like throat slicings and mouth stabbings. But yeah, and so then she like tries to escape, but like she doesn't have a way to escape. And then she goes back down to the cellar room, which like she should have just broken a window at that point. I mean, I get the windows were kind of small, but like, or like gotten another weapon at the very least. But she just kind of goes back down there and waits for him to stab her in the belly.
Yeah.
And it's at that point, this is kind of like the big twist of the movie where she is like, look, you don't believe in faith or prayer, but I do. So I'm going to say a prayer. And as he's praying, the guy kind of like is dying and crawls over to her and like just kind of like cuddles up on her, I guess. Is that what he's doing?
I thought he was going to go for the kill. And then the other girl.
Yeah. Did he have a weapon? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he was going to try and cut her again.
Okay. He was going to try and cut her again. And then miraculously, because they kind of talk about miracles, the other girl gets up, smacks him with a board with a nail in it. Shout out to Simpsons. And he dies, and then she dies. So she like was raised from the dead to kill him.
Yes.
And then she escapes.
It was a miracle. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a miracle. And then she escapes into the forest, and they don't really show what happens. But as she's laying there bleeding out, maybe about to call the police or something, she sees a butterfly land on her hand, which she said she wanted to be reincarnated as a butterfly. But then it like cuts back and the butterfly disappears. So like, was it a butterfly or not? Was the miracle real or not? Is it all fake or is it real?
Yeah,
Does God exist?
Yeah.
And the filmmakers are like, we can't say if God exists, even though this lady came back to life. But maybe it does because there's a butterfly. And I'm like, well, I think the raising from the dead is much more miraculous than a butterfly, to be honest. But yeah. So stupid. Yeah, but I guess kind of cool for idiots who would watch this and then maybe be like, it's okay to believe in religion, actually.
Yeah, maybe. And I think you had told me this and we weren't sure, but yeah, both of the girls are former LDS.
Okay. I hadn't confirmed on Chloe East.
The blondie is from San Clemente, California.
Also, the blondie looks way better in the Google photos than in the movie.
Yeah, they play her down a bit in the movie. I remember she's in the Fabelmans, the like Steven Spielberg movie, and she plays I
didn't watch that.
She plays a like evangelical girl who like takes advantage of young Steven Spielberg.
Cool. 23 and 24 too, which is kind of nice to see accurate aged young people because it's usually like she's 40 playing a 20-year-old.
All right, yeah. So anyway, it's not very good, in my honest opinion.
I get why people were acting like it's some kind of like deep movie because the ending does kind of subvert expectations to a certain extent. But like I said, it's so dumb and annoying. And it's like, well, like the big idea of like maybe religion is real being deep is like so stupid to me that it's hard to get behind it.
Sort of tricked me a little bit, and not that this makes it really like that. This isn't really a credit to it. It just did surprise me. I thought for sure the plot was going to be that the more sophisticated sister who has like doubts about her faith, I thought she was going to be like use her like nuance and like complicated faith to like navigate his all of his little like riddles and stuff, and that the more naive sister would end up getting killed. That's how I thought it was going to play out. But the opposite. I picked the wrong one to survive, basically.
Which we should have guessed. We should have guessed that. They always do that, where it's like you think it's going to be this one, then it's the other one.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't have anything more to say about this. It's kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, watch it if you're going to watch it. It's interesting. The Hugh Grant performance is genuinely good. I actually think the sisters. The sister missionary girls did as good a job as they could given the material. Like, I'm not mad at them for doing it or anything.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't think I have anything else.
That's it.
That
was the podcast, everyone.
Don't trust a Redditor.
Yeah, never trust a Redditor. If you're LDS and thinking about seeing it, it's not scary from a faith perspective or a movie perspective. Like, there's only one jump scare, right? Just the lady coming back to life, kind of. Or whatever.
Yeah, I just don't think it's very strong as a horror movie. I don't think it's very strong.
No, yeah, it's barely any horror. It's just a couple like gross shots that are not pleasant.
And I tried really hard. I tried, like you mentioned this as well, but I tried really hard to like distance myself from it and say like, okay, well, anytime something gets covered in a movie that I don't know anything about, it's possible that they are doing it incorrectly. And so like, I'm like, well, this happens to be something I know a lot about. So I'll try and give it some grace, but, and that's, but
you go.
I think I would have disliked this if it was, Jehovah's Witnesses or two nuns visiting a guy from their,
or Hare Krishnas.
Yeah, like, or just door to door, two girls selling door to door, anything. Like, I think I would.
We should do that. The Vivint.
Movie. Yeah, the Vivint horror movie.
Heretic Vivint.
Yeah. Guy, he leads them into the basement. He's like, "You got a spray down here," and he locks them in.
And he does like a spiel on like, do you realize this solar that we're selling you is actually a loan, and we're making interest? We make all our money on interest. We sell it to you at a loss.
Yeah, this guy, this Hugh Grant guy, he didn't have a problem with usury or interest, though. He seemed to really like that stuff.
Yeah, he kept talking about, like, if you have daily compounding interest, you actually make more than the yearly compounding. But you don't, it looks the same on paper. What I was going to say, if you want a scary movie that deals with faith, you should watch Signs and our podcast on Signs.
Yeah, just watch Signs.
Just watch Signs. It's much better and not as stupid. But also, what I was thinking is like, well, what's the difference between this and Signs? And I think the difference is Signs was dealing with like the idea of loss of faith, but it was it felt like it was from a sincere perspective. Maybe it's just because it was Mel Gibson who could carry that, but it's much more sincere in the portrayal of the struggle of faith, right? Whereas it's almost like the big like concession of the movie is like, what if God real? And it's like, I guess that's a very deep thought if you literally have zero faith, to be like, to have the idea that, well, maybe there is something to belief is like super profound to you. But that's not profound to somebody who actually has faith. Whereas Signs, if you have faith, there is something profound to be seen in that struggle of the man who's like lost his wife, but given everything to God and finds it again. Whereas this is just like, could you imagine if religion was real? It's like, yeah, it could actually.
I did like the chapel that they used, which doesn't look like an LDS chapel, but
No, yeah, I was I was wondering about that.
it actually kind of looked AI generated.
Yeah. I need to pull up our my messages I was sending you as you were making me watch this.
You want to do it now? You want to look at those now?
Oh, well,
Or-
I was like calling stuff before it happened. I'm like, okay, well, they're definitely going to use they're definitely going to bring up polygamy. I was like, that's definitely happening. And you were like, yep. And then I was like, okay, they're definitely going to say magic underwear at some time. And they end up saying it like 3 or 4 times in like very pivotal scenes.
Well, one of the first
She's
scenes
like,
in the movie, the girl actually, the local kids, they tear her skirt off.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but when she kills him at the end, she shouts out magic underwear kind of as a battle cry.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Like I forgot about
but
that.
anyway, yeah, so like magic underwear, I knew was going to happen. He's saying the word balls as an expletive, which like is funny. Like it is a thing Mormons do. They'll say like fetch and like frick and stuff like that. But say balls is not one of them, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I was like, oh, the girl hasn't thought if the church was true or not. Like it's one thing to not be sure, but it's one thing to say you've never thought about it.
Yeah. That's really a strange line.
Like there are people who serve missions who are kind of like on the fence, right? Like, and kind of doing it from like social pressure.
Yeah.
But nobody would be like, well, I've just never really thought. That's an interesting question. Is it true? I don't know. I've never thought of that. Like that's just ridiculous. And I said, I hope the less cute one gets killed. I was wrong. Oh man.
I think they're about equally cute, just different flavors.
No, you're wrong on this. You're wrong. The other one is cuter, but it's fine. We should do a podcast episode about your faith being shaken by the other one being cuter.
Yeah.
Or something.
They're both Exmo. I think they'll both come back someday.
Well, apparently Sophie Thatcher sings the final song of the movie, which is "Knocking on Heaven's Door," and there's like some video on YouTube of her talking about the song. It's a cover of that song that she does for the movie, and apparently she's trying to do like a music career too. But she's like, we just thought thematically it fit like so well because like they knock on the door. And
it has the word heaven in it.
Heaven, which is like religious. I'm like, oh man, like we're in for it on this movie.
Yeah, she's very smart.
Like if they're like thematically, there's just so much there, but it's like, well, yeah, it's if anything, it's a bit too on the nose. You know, there are other songs that talk about religion that you could use. You know, you don't have to do. Oh, this is the door knocking movie, so we're gonna call it "Knocking on Door." It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's like the pun that like a local newspaper would use if they were going to be like it's like knocking on heaven's door. Local missionaries make big impact.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so if that sounds clever to you, like you're gonna like it. Like, what's that one? I think it's like a Reddit where it's like things like deep when you were 8 or deep when you were in 8th grade.
Yeah, I'm 13 and this is deep or something.
Yeah. That's what this movie is perfect for that demographic. So if you're 13 and you think it's deep to say knocking on heaven's door, then go see this movie.
Yeah, I can be pretty dismissive of this stuff, but yes, I can imagine a 14-year-old, you know, being like, "Oh, this raises some good questions."
Yeah. Yeah, if you've literally never thought about religion in any way whatsoever, this is going to be super deep to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Cool Frasier. Everyone, sign up for the premium plan of the Granite Mountain Movie Club, and that's all. We'll talk to you guys later.
Alrighty.